I own two Shibas, right? And so on the left side of the character, there is a Shiba Inu dog, like next to the frog guy on the right. So I put a little Shiba. This is Genji. He's in flow state. I thought that'd be a really fun thing to just put my own dog in there. Flow state was one that I pushed a lot with my art director. I got the description and stuff like that, and I wanted to push what the description was a bit. If I recall correctly, it was supposed to be like a rave scene or just like some sort of like party going on and everything like that. With a lot of the cards that I personally make, when I get a chance to, I really like to infuse my own lived experience for things. A lot of like breakdancing and martial arts, like tricking back in college. When you're breaking or like a set for tricking, you just get into this thing called flow state. And so it was one of those things where I really wanted to capture getting to a state when you're doing something physical, right? With martial arts, like with tricking, there's the arts portion of martial arts, and with breakdancing, there's definitely like an artistic expression that you get, and so you kind of like doing a lot of these things on the fly. So flow state was just trying to capture that idea of like being in like a gathering or like being in like breakdance cipher and having the a freestyle session. Flow State had the most changes. A lot of it was like me asking my art director, hey, I think it would be really cool to be able to do this. I remember the email chain was just like, hey, I know y'all wanted this, but what if we went this route? The overall vibes, like I said, of just being in like a music festival, a kind of rave, were still there, but like I wanted to put more focus on like a specific aspect of like rave or music festival culture, and that's like when people get into like their little dance circles, and that's something I always like. Whenever I'm at a rave or a music festival, you'll always find me at a dance circle or something. The general vibe of just people in like a kind of music festival or rave setting was still there. It hadn't been established that the main character was going to be breakdancing or doing some sort of trick or anything like that. So it was just like a general like chill vibe.
Did they have different routes that changed over time?
I think the one that stayed primarily the most consistent was Diary of Dreams. The description was just like a book with illustrations coming to life. So these were the four thumbnails I had for Diary of Dreams. A person like actively drawing, like there's a character in B2 that's like actively drawing. At this point, this was like very like rough stuff. A2 is clearly the one that was the closest one. So when I said to my art directors, and then there was just some like experimental stuff that was going on. And then this is Brush Off. So Brush Off primarily very, very much inspired by a lot of wushu, like kung fu films, and also like fighting games. I wanted to give the general kind of dueling vibe, so you can see like B1 was the one that like we kind of settled on for things, but there was also like a lot of really cool experimental ones. Like I was really upset, like I really liked A1 because there was like a lot of like motion going on for Brush Off. And there was one where like A2 where it was just you're in the audience seat and you're watching a duel in like a little like auditorium thing. So they go through quite a lot of iterations, and like I usually give my art directors plenty of things to kind of look at. Another card that like I really that had a lot of sentimental value to me was Preponderant Pearl, and that was because that was the first card ever announced for me for Magic the Gathering. It came out in Alchemy, which was like I was super excited, but like no like a lot of people messaged me because they didn't know what being an Alchemy card meant. Like where can I get this card? And I was like, oh no, you got to get it online. I'm sorry, you can't tangibly get it, right? It was one of those things where like I was so excited to finally have my name on Scryfall. It was something like you can only get online, and it was such a cool card, right? Like I really enjoyed what the card did, and brief I got was a lot of fun to work on. But someone came to me at a convention, I think it was Anime Milwaukee, and they asked if they could sign a few cards of mine, and they like printed out like a copy of Preponderant Pearl, like in real life, like a proxy, and they had two copies, and they're like, "Can you sign one of them, and the other one's for you?" And so like that meant like a lot to me, like just seeing like a card, and like that was the first technical Magic card I signed because like my stuff for Strixhaven hadn't come out yet, so that was another card that really meant a lot. With the individual that's like actually like in the centerfold and like that's the same character of Brush Up, and it's also in Diary of Dreams that's the same character's diary. So like I just wanted like narratively when I got the three cards, I knew I wanted to kind of have like an overarching story with all of that stuff, and so that character pulls from a lot of general Filipino vibes. What would kind of like Islander Filipino character wear and look like going into like Strixhaven? There's the fish motif. I know that's a really common motif in Strixhaven, but that was something I wanted to tie in together, and that was primarily because, like I said, I really wanted to give Islander vibes to that, and so like when you're an island, you got like a lot of fish. I know for Filipino culture, like fishing and fish is like such a big thing. So there is like always a fish in any one of the three strict cards, and so that's like kind of the way they conjure. There's like two or three fishes in brush up when they like interact and stuff like that. You'll kind of see them; they're a little bit more subtle. The only thing I was really happy about when I was like getting to do magic artwork was like I get to do artwork for magic, right? Contribute to the rich history of like this game I've been playing since like I was a kid. And so like just being able to do that was already a wild concept. I hadn't even thought about if my cards would be like playable at all. I just remember I was like, oh cool, like Diary of Dreams. I was like, okay, cool, like they'll probably see some play in like Commander. And then after that, like I remember Flow State getting revealed. That was the second card that got revealed. And then after that, there was Hawk Online, right? Like I remember the conversation online was like, "This card is this card broken? This card seems really good." And then people were like, "No, that card's not really that good. It says and on instance and sorcery in your graveyard." I was like, "Okay, cool. Like they'll probably see some play." And then like once the set got released and Flow State started being like getting into play and people started testing Flow State and stuff like that, I remember that there was like a YouTube video that was like 30 minutes long that was like Flow State should be banned. Like I've had to sign a lot of Flow States, and that's because like they get played in play sets, right? So like Diary of Dreams, I get the occasional and like occasionally brush up. I've had to go to conventions and stuff, and it's just like people are like giving me like 8 Flow States to sign, and I'm just like, oh my god, like it's wild. Yeah, it's so wild. I was at a art festival here in Minneapolis like a month or so ago, and I had all my artwork up like in canvas form and such, and I had a canvas print of a Flow State. It was ingrained in my brain. Someone shouted out, "That's Flow State," and I was like, oh my god. It's wild because like being able to make like an iconic piece of like magic artwork, and that really it's a roll of dice, right? Because like making good artwork doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be iconic, but it typically depends on the card. So if you have a good card, you just happen to make like an iconic piece because people are going to remember things like the artwork for like Demonic Tutor or like just like the Moxes and stuff like that. Like that stuff is iconic because they're just like very powerful cards, and so someone screaming "That's Flow State" like broke my brain, and it was just a wild experience.
So, how many pieces do you work on at once?
It depends on the set. We'll get emails for our art director, so that Wizards has like a ton of art directors, and they'll get like a list of all the artists that are within like Magic the Gathering, and they typically have their portfolios attached, and then they'll be like, hey, they'll reach out to us and we'll get emails, and sometimes they'll be like, we have one card available, and sometimes they'll ask like, how many cards can you do? And when they ask me, like when I get asked that question, it just depends on my current work that I have going on. So if I'm taking up a lot of contract work within that like 2-3 month period, I will typically like take one or two, like or just really just one. But if I have nothing going, I'll be like, I'll take like 5 or 6, right? So it depends on what the needs of the art director is, and then sometimes, like I said, they just kind of ask you, or sometimes they have like one specific piece that they want you for something.
How much time does it take to produce a piece?
This is the worst answer ever, but it's vibes. It's like some pieces like I'll like be able to get done and like get a thumbnail done, and then after that send some initial like color sketches and then go through a final pass, and altogether that'll probably sometimes take like a week. At other times like I need like the full like 2 months, 3 months sometimes. It's vibes, and it's not even like if one piece is more complicated than the other. Sometimes like I'll be like doing a simple piece and like, why does this not look good or right? A lot of it is just figuring out what kind of story I want to tell, what kind of design goals I want to convey when people are looking at the artwork, and it's just strictly based on vibes.
How exciting is to be a magic artist?
Oh god, it's wild, right? That's been like the top thing for me personally, like on my bucket list, to the point where that was like literally the bucket list. It's like, okay, like what do I do from here and now? It's just one of those wild things. It was quite literally the goal I wanted to achieve as an artist. Yeah, I can't even really articulate or describe in words. You get the email, and then after that initial excitement, you're like waiting for like your card to release. So you like in like the back of your head, you're just like, okay, like I have some cards coming out. After the waiting, it was just like, okay, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? And you get the release date for like the set that you're coming out, and then there's that kind of anxiousness, and you're waiting for the spoilers to happen, right? When we get our cards, we get like a name, a color and like a description for the cards we get. We typically don't know what the card does or anything. There's the is my card good, and then it gets released, and it's just for me. It was just such a exciting thing.